Hello guys, TKG is here for your comfortable LostArk life. In this video, I'd like to cover one of his class, Summoner, as the video in my channel has some old introduction and editing, so I want to remake it, write the listen, cover videos, and of course add some more categories and chapters for more clear explanations. Now follow me, I'll show you what you need. Before I start this video, one thing you gotta know. This video is from the KL server, and of course it is based on KL statistic and common experience right now, as the LostArk always try to fix the balance between the class by classes, so in the future, some of the composition of the skills can be a little bit changed too. And as the video is containing about the gaming experience and build on KL, some of the composition of the skills, tribal build can be a little bit different with the global. But I will try to explain as much as I can and easy as I can in this video of this preference and the build on KL. And maybe you can also know the recent situation and community right now on KL on this class. And of course, with this video, you can utilize some of the build for your LostArk journey. So watch this video with those considerations and use this video as your reference to your LostArk journey. Let's start with the most basic one first. The class engraving I'm going to cover in this video is 상급 소환사, or Master Summoner might be more familiar in the global. As you guys expect or roughly know about the Master Summoner class engraving is a truly specialization class. And unlike the other classes that using or utilizing identity as an additional enhancement, Master Summoner class not only just utilizing the identity, but also it is actually using the identity, Ancient Elemental, as her main backbone DPS skills. So more easy explanations, most of a skill has a role in aiding the main skill identity. Well, let's talk about the details later on this video. As you might expect, her base and the core combat stat are specializations, as her DPS performance are highly depending on her identity, Ancient Elemental skill. Her core and the main combat stat is specializations, so you need to choose the variation based on the specialization stat. So in other words, whatever you build with your summoner, specialization stat is indispensable. And of course, she has some variation build to choose from, but I think the Master Summoner has no argue about the most common build on her. So what I want to say is that I can show all of the variation build on this one video. So I will show you the most representative build on the KL, maybe on the global. First build on her is specialization with critical with hallucination gear set. Summoner stat build is more formalized than any other classes in the LostArk. Mostly I think not many things left to argue with the Summoner's build itself. Summoner is quite old and more like the class has been existed since the release of the LostArk. So some mechanic or maybe structures of the Summoner might look old, but since from the revamped Summoner is still loved class as among the KL players. Well, back to the main part. With the hallucination gear set, she could have a decent critical rate than you expect. It's about 70 to 80% with engraving on the right side. As you guys might use the critical stat as a secondary, you might feel a little bit heavy on the controls during the whole raid. And personally, in order to do a smooth identity cycle, you need at least about 1650 specialization stat to see the barely fit 2 occur in one cycle. Of course, base stat requirement is 1750 or higher for the better and smooth gameplay, but as the LostArk game itself has a little price to pay on the specialization accessories, so if you wish to see some decent role in your raid party, you need at least about 1650 to do that role in the raid. And of course, she has a variation build too, by switching the hallucination gear to salvation gear. But gotta be honest, condition of the using salvation set is quite picky or more trickier than you expect. The reason is simple, using salvation will force you to use the critical stat and level 3 adrenals and critical synergy friends or critical synergy bracelet. Or if you have some more critical synergy on your characters or party, it might be more better than the hallucination set. My recommendation? Well, I'll say use the hallucination set because it is simple. Building or playing as a salvation might be more stressful than the hallucination build. Engraving section can be summarized by the text box on the right side. If you wish to reach the ceiling, you need to use the Grudge, class engraving, Kimble weapons, it's quite fixed to use, and choose from the Hitmaster, Cursed Adrenals. Recommendation of the ceiling, Grudge, Master Summoner, Kimblem Weapon, Hitmaster, Crystal, level 2 Adrenals. And if you are the guy that all I need is efficient recommendation, build the ceiling engravings and lower the Adrenals to level 1. Unlike the other specialization classes has some difficulty about maintaining the DPS itself, Summoner has better stabilities on maintaining the DPS. And of course, she is quite easy to pour the skills in short period of time. And also, personally, maintaining the hallucination buff was quite easy during the whole contents with decent damage performance. And unlike the other identity line classes, Summoner can utilize a skill more easily on many gimmicks, especially on destructions and the stagger. And personally, I think it was way too easy to participate on the gimmicks during the raid. But unlike the stable and decent DPS gimmick performance, she has a quite bad on mobility and flexibility. Her mobility is more like Destroyer and Gun Lancer, so called as Dubagi in KO. She has not many variation on surviving skill too. All you have in your surviving is Space, Evade, and Ancient Elemental that has immune on short period of time. Also, the latest tendency of the LostArk updates requires your characters with more mobility. Some of the skill build and composition, or further in the combat stat, might not that suitable on the recent raid contents, especially on Theramine or even in the Ivory Tower on Voldis. As her identity has a great proportion on her DPS performance, if you miss those ancient elemental skills, your DPS performance will be dropped more than you expect. Above all, she requires your veterancy for the full performance, more like need more sense or feelings and controls. So in other words, in order to see a full performance in the variable raid, you need to be more accurate or more like precise on using your skills. As I mentioned in the combat stats sections, you need some requirements to see the full performance during the contents. For the smooth identity and skill cycle, you need at least about 1650 or higher. For best performance, about 1750 or higher specialization stat is required for the smooth performance. Also, as I mentioned in the previous chapter, you need some veterancy under control to see the full performance too. More like you need some exact certainty or expectation for your identity cycle. So in other words, more than just memorizing the combo or cycle, you need to understanding the cycle and know how to utilize your skill in the right place and right time. And additionally, you need some well-thrown for more smooth identity cycle. Core mechanic of the Master Summoner is identity supply and identity, ancient elemental. As you might expect, her core mechanic, more like identity cycle, has not many things to concern for just looking at it. Supply the identity and using attack up skill before you dropped the ancient elemental. Pretty easy, right? Besides, the key to the summoner's management is a buff skill. Those two summons or buff skills cannot be stacked at the same time. So you need to use the buff skill one by one in order to see the efficient damage performance. Skill composition can be categorized by this text box: 2 additional DPS skills and 3 senior skills, and identity supply counter skills. Actually, every action you take as a summoner will supply the identity. And as I mentioned in the beginning, all of her skills, except for the Ancient Spear and Earth Collapse, her skills are actually the platform for the Ancient Elemental, more like foundation before the Ancient Elemental. As the DPS performance is really focused on the Ancient Elemental identity, her skill set is quite additional and assisting the identity. And of course, naturally, each hit from the skill is really precious. Every tick or hit of the skill will decide the next identity cycle, so you need to be more precise on using your skills. In other words, you need to choose your action carefully. Additionally, you need to know the next move of the raid for smooth cycle during the gameplay. Sinner's skills, L-Seed, and the Swamp is another backbone skills of the summoner. Both skills will increase your attack power about 30% for 5 seconds. So with these two skills, you can easily pump your damage for a short period of time. And as I mentioned in the first, those two attack power buff cannot be stacked. So you need to keep in mind to using those skills in the separate uptime. Build and priority can be summarized by this text box. Leveling of the skills is quite not many things to concern, so I will tell you more details in the priority sections. Tripod priority can be categorized like this. First priority of the tripod is mostly related to identity cycle. For the best identity skill cycle, you need to do the leveling these tripods. And for the DPS related tripod, it's mostly from the Earth's collapse and ancient spear. So for the better DPS, you need at least more than level 4 tripod of those tripods. Also, the D-charge, water elemental, weak point detections, and the LC second and the third tripod doesn't need leveling. Gem priority is actually not many things to concern. For the better party making, you need to set the level 7 gem and then upgrade your ancient elemental annihilation gem for better DPS performance. Awakening skill is Background Wrath. As the background has some little more advantage on the identity cycle, so mostly Master Summoner use the backgrounds for better and fast DPS performance. I think the summoners, especially Master Summoner's advantage is coming from the range of the skill. And most of all, she is a Hitmaster type class. So you can be more free to look around and free to start the DPS cycle more far outside from the raid. For Korean expression, you need to know some gimmicks and tricks for compress the DPS while controlling the summoner. First major trick is 3 Akir with background. But of course, it has some condition you need to fulfill. First, you need about full elemental stone before you start the combo. Second, you need to use the electric storm for small identity supply, and then use the background. Actually, the background is a 2-hit skill. And of course, those small hits also slightly fill up the identity meters. So in short, as soon as you see small hit or ground shake, use the Akir right away. And with that, here's the main part. In that short period of time, electric storm you already installed can overfill up the identity meters. That means you can use the Akir once more. Additionally, from the following background second hit, you can fill up the identity meters full again. So you can complete the 3 Akir with those blinks of an eye. Well, kinda complicated to listen, right? Let me show you how it works. Some of the skill, especially Ancient Spear Jump, can be cancelled with some tricks. And personally, I've experienced a lot of skill can cancel that big and slow jump. When you use the Ancient Spear, when the casting meter almost reaches the end, using casting skill or most of the skill can cancel that jump with some exact timing. Skill combo is really a reference to a summoner. Big frame with the summoner combos can be summarized like this. As I mentioned in the first, summoner skill and identity cycle is not memorizing it, more like understanding and utilizing it in right place, in right time. But one thing you need to keep in mind is that those attack power-up sceners must be used no matter using before or during the Akir casting time. But you have to use the sceners for the full DPS performance of the identity. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone, and always thanks for your big support. Hope this video was a little help for your LostArk journey. Hope you do well with your summoner with this video. And of course, if you like my videos, hit us up for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.